everyone. Welcome back to our second compilation episode. Today, we're going to be talking about psychological safety. But first, Rose, I got to tell you what I'm loving and not loving. Both of them are travel related.
Oh, yay. You know how I love a good travel related story.
That seems to have been a theme for this whole thing. But as you know, I was just like you before me. I was at the beach with my family. And I have also said in a prior podcast episode that I was very excited to try out my little Bose open earbuds. And it is a complete game changer for me. I have never been able to tolerate earbuds, and I can tolerate those. And so for like a good hour on the flight, I was listening, and I've literally never been able to do that. Like, it just gives me such a headache to use regular earbuds.
I'm loving that too. So Dana Boss and one of my favorite Peloton instructors, Jen Sherman, are loving the headsets. That's two really solid recommendations right there.
Totally. And it's total game changer because I'm the only one who was unable to listen to a podcast on a plane or whatever because I just can't handle the earbuds. All right. But what I'm not loving, and Rose, you've heard me say this before, in airports, I do not love the people who are basically wearing underwear for their flights. I do not need to see, especially when it's skin colored, like they're wearing skin colored leggings or like shorty leggings, and you can see a lot. And I just don't need it in my life. I don't. Maybe that makes me a fuddy-duddy. I'm all for comfort. Like, I believe you can wear what makes you comfortable, but I don't think you need to wear skin colored saran wrap that shows me every part of your anatomy.
Okay, fuddy-duddy. I'm kind of with you on the color. I'm not a skin tone fan, period. But
and wear leggings. You can wear leggings that are not so like thin. The fabric that I'm talking about is wicked thin. It's almost like you're wearing dance tights.
I appreciate the comment.
I'm not anti-leggings.
Yeah, I hope not, because we won't be traveling together. I will annoy you as soon as I show up.
Clean yourself up, woman, Rose!
Okay, so what am I loving? I know I've talked about this a lot, and I'm actually starting to bore myself. I'm starting to talk about it so much. But I'm like super digging the Eras tour in the UK, and I especially love that, my national treasure, Jason Kelce, that was there with his wife, supporting his bro, Travis, wearing his friendship bracelets, meeting the prince, talking about it on the New Heights podcast. I just really enjoy him. He's such a real dude, but he also has a tremendous amount of respect and support for his brother and his people in his brother's life. So I just think I just love that. I'm loving him. And he actually has, I'm going to throw a little teaser out there, some pretty interesting leadership insights and observations. And then what I'm not loving kind of goes with it. I like the Foo Fighters and I like David Grohl, but he was kind of dissing on Taylor for not being a real performer because she doesn't play. The music isn't all live, and he said they play live. And like, number one, if that's what you think, just from a PR perspective, unless you're trying to attract negative attention, and hopefully, because he's been super supportive of her in the past, so maybe his mouth, just like Pat McAfee with Caitlin Clark, the mouth started runneth over, and it happens to everybody. But I didn't love it, and I kind of feel what I don't love, to close this, is I don't love that people can't make a mistake anymore, because maybe it was just a mistake, but everybody on the planet, including myself, is like, oh my God.
Is it Grohl made a mistake, you mean?
Yeah, David Grohl. He basically called out Taylor Swift for not performing live. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were saying Tay-Tay had made a mistake and he was commenting.
No, Grohl. No. He says that we make mistakes. That's how we can prove that we're live. And she is flawless. And, she has a track in the back that she's singing to. And then, I could go on and on for this because I've had to research it to see where the truth lie.
Why throw shade?
I just think, one, don't throw shade. And number two, I also, to kind of counter that, maybe he just overspoke and you can't even make a mistake anymore. For goodness sakes.
Well, certainly not with the clan of Tay-Tay, who's probably going to, go berserko on him.
Already has.
Clearly, I've been away because I am not
Yeah.
remotely aware of this kerfuffle. Okay, let's slide on in. Rose, we have heard throughout all of our interviews about the environment, the work environment, which a lot of times people also refer to as culture, you and I in particular. And key to creating a culture that supports great performance is the concept of psychological safety. And it's very hard to get the best results if you don't have an environment of psychological safety. And it's the foundation for just a great work environment.
I think it's a topic that we're becoming, as we narrow down into some topics, pretty passionate about. We teach a class on it now. But it also is kind of a fundamental to why we started this podcast, right? Because if for those of you that are new, the kind of the objective behind it was to just share knowledge and information and our mutual experiences, which are very different, that would help this generation and generations moving forward to create an environment where people can work and not only work, but thrive. Like thrive professionally and thrive personally. So sorry, Dana, I just wanted to toss that in there.
Very good point. You're smart. All right. The interview we had with Devin Hughes, he had this great overall description of trust in the workplace, which also in a way was describing psychological safety. And so let's give that a listen.
The other day I was doing a keynote and a woman in the back of the room, I don't know, it's probably 500-600 people, grabbed the mic and she says to me in front of 500 people, she goes, "Devin, what's the most important job of a leader?"
Okay.
Everyone's kind of leaning in like this, you know
Like
what I mean?
this?
And again, profound, not profound, that's all up to interpretation, right? I said, and I quote, "To eliminate fear from the workplace." Do tell more. I said, eliminate fear. Fear for people to be safe to be themselves, safe to speak up, safe to take risks. And so, again, that was the frame of that conversation. As a leader, can I eliminate fear? Because when I look back anecdotally at my career, when fear was rampant in the system, I'd be less likely to raise my hand, to volunteer, to push back,
yeah.
to devil's
Totally.
advocate, to be contrarian, to want to get along.
Yeah, Dana, I love that. I love that comment from Devin. But, I'm going to toss out to you what you always toss out to me, which is, we're on this pod to not share, but share not the what, but also the how. Yeah. So, give me your lens on how a manager can create that psychologically safe environment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I don't care if you're the CEO or the frontline supervisor on the manufacturing floor or anywhere in between. A lot of it is just in how you respond to your direct reports or anyone else in your organization when they share something with you. And it's about a lot of times showing empathy, particularly if they're sharing a challenge. Even something like, I get it, I've been there. I totally know what you're dealing with. I get it. Something like that to make it people realize it's okay to say that you have a challenge right now or this or that. It's also about a lot of listening, and we're going to get to that. But I also think when you're in a group setting, if you're the manager and you want a discussion to be happening, talk last. Don't talk first. And talk the least. There's obviously exceptions to that. But I think those are some. And the last one I'll end on is just making it really clear what success looks like for that person or for that team. And what I mean by that is just, are you two crystal clear on what's expected over the next 90 days or half a year or a year? And so that I'm not sitting here trying to figure out what it is that you want or what good looks like. Having explicit discussions about that, I would say.
And I'll add to that a little bit. I think in the Rolly clip that we had is also just a great approach. I mean, you already mentioned a couple of the things like connecting with people. He had talked about still staying connected to his first line workers and leaders and managers just to make sure he's getting the kind of the unfiltered, unbiased truth, and then continuing to show them respect. And then I think something that Joyce brought up is incredibly important. We've talked about the say do ratio a lot. So you listen first, but then if you say you're going to take action based on the input that you received, you actually have to take action. So let's listen to Joyce about what she says about listening and then taking action.
And then we listened and we made a bunch of investments. So number 1, 2, and 3 on that list was our capability around our e-com platform. It returned poor searches. We didn't have great detail around products, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But the point is, we took a lot of action. We invested in a new leader in e-com. We spent a bunch of money on our e-com platform, and we just rolled that out to all of our North American customers finally across the board in February. So these are long-term investments that we have to make on the back of what are our clients telling us and where can we improve. And similarly, we made some significant investments in our services business. We had a lot of great services capability, but we were not operating it like an orchestra.
Yeah, I love, I don't know if you have any other comments on that, Dana. I just love what Joyce had to say there around, I have said it in season 1. We've talked about it in season 2. I just mentioned the say-do ratio. But I think one of the things that completely will break down that trust and that psychological safety is when, as a leader, you say you're going to do something and then you don't take the action. And if, maybe there's a reason that you can't, but then follow up with the why you didn't. But you've got to have that closed loop process around the feedback.
What I appreciate also is key to psychological safety is proactively asking people what they think. One mistake I think a lot of us can make is announcing to the group at some point, I'm really open to your ideas on how we can improve things around here. And then you leave it at that. That might not generate enough confidence that people are actually going to come forward. She made it clear that she really proactively asked for that and then listened.
Yeah, and took action. I'm going to keep putting that on. And then Devin had some great commentary on something that it maybe in hindsight is incredibly obvious, but is really hard to accomplish in the workplace. And that is simply eliminating fear and creating love, right? And that comes from that story that he tells. So let's listen to the clip from Devin.
When I was building relationships, there was 2 types of trust. There was the practical trust, which was like the type of trust you earn by being steadfast, by meeting your commitments, by showing up on time. I can rely on your competence and dependability. Well, so I was like, okay, we kind of get that. The nuance of that to me was the emotional trust. It's when people trust that you're on their side, that you'll treat them kindly and respectfully and you won't judge them. And then when things get heavy and hard, so that sandbox of thoughts and feelings, the messy side, where I really spent a lot of time trying to be a practitioner across generational and races and genders and all that, and really trying to understand the science of that, how you actually build emotional trust with people that's authentic and real.
Talk about a blinding flash of obvious. And I don't mean that he's saying something so obvious. It's just the minute he said it, I was like, of course that's what it is. In summary, our job as managers and leaders is to eliminate fear in the organization or on the team so people can bring their full selves and do their best work. But I had not thought of it that way until he said it. And I can't, by the way, I delivered a session on psychological safety. I wish you'd been doing it with me, but I did it. And I'm using that line now at the end, like after we've talked about it a lot, I'm like, in summary, the charge to you is how are you going to eliminate fear in your divisions and your work teams? It's just such a great way to summarize. But let me be clear. And I've said this many times. I know I beat this drum, but a psychologically safe environment has high accountability. People are held accountable to making deadlines and delivering quality. And if there's a mistake, you talk about it. So anyone who has this thought that psychologically safe means we're just all nice, we never say anything that's going to upset someone, we're always hugging, that is not what psychological safety is. It is having difficult conversations if those conversations need to happen. Because in general, no one's going to enjoy a workplace where people aren't accountable for doing their own work and doing it well. But what it doesn't ever include is personal attacks or humiliating people. Like, you can have those accountability conversations while still respecting the person. So that's the difference. Low psychological safety, it can be humiliating or attacks, and that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think, like maybe the 4 words are high accountability, low fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Simply stated.
Yet another little summary, pithy way to sum it up. I love it.
A little nugget. Yeah, and I also loved when Devin noted, like, if you want to start to create that environment, you've got to understand what people want. And people want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be valued. And, go back to just the couple lessons that we've shared over the last 15 minutes. How do you see people? You engage them, you listen to their feedback, you hear them. And how do they feel valued? By the actions that you take on their feedback. There is nothing more rewarding as an employee when you share insight that you think is pretty critical, and that the manager or leader at a minimum responds to it and says, hey, I heard you, but we can't do that, and this is why. Or, I heard you, and these are the change that we're making. This is the change that we're making.
By the way, Rolly said that exact same thing, if you recall.
Yep.
He's like, you will be heard. You might not like what I decide, but you will be heard. And do you know who else basically summed this up? We were talking about how these amazing ways of sort of summing things up.
Can I guess?
Yes, you sure can.
Our national treasure, Jason Kelce.
Jason Kelce.
And maybe we should just be super clear. If people don't know, Jason Kelce was an offensive, Pro Bowl offensive lineman for the Super Bowl winner for the Philadelphia Eagles, and co-host of the New Heights podcast, recently launched with his very famous brother, Travis Kelce, who is dating Taylor Swift. So that's the circle of life. But go ahead, Dana.
And shocker, somehow we've brought it back to football. Shocker.
I know. Shocker.
But I can't, everything I hear in life, I often will think of the leadership and management aspects. I can't not. It's what I do for a living. And when he was giving his retirement speech, he gave a shout out to the owner. And he said, I'd like to thank Jeffrey Lurie for his dedication to building an organization that values its employees as people and gives them the resources necessary to thrive. I've only had one boss, so I don't know much to compare to. But Jeffrey always made it a point to show his appreciation and love for his players on, and more importantly, off the field.
By the way, there's that word again. Not lack of fear, but God forbid we use this word in the workplace. Love.
Right. But he literally summarized, that's what it is. That's what people say in an environment of high psychological safety, that he saw me as a whole person, not just as some guy that goes and hits people for his work.
Yeah, right. And what's interesting is I think we're going to play off of that need to be seen as a bit of a launch pad for our next episode, where we're going to do a compilation of some of the feedback that we've gotten from our various leaders on, what work looks like in the future, and what does seen actually mean in that new work environment. So with that, I'd like to thank you for joining the pod. I'd like to thank you, Fina Charleston, our wonderful producer, especially in these bit of a challenging assignment with these compilation episodes. Please subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, and we look forward to talking with you in the next pod.